Hi, it's Peter here. I have a very interesting lens. TTArtisan 23mm F1.4. Fully manual lens. But before we talk about the lens a bit, let's do some photography. I came to this skate park. Not too many skaters around because there's quite a lot of snow. It's very close to zero and it has been a bit warm and now it's a bit under zero, so everything is kind of frozen. So all the snow is actually quite frozen and crispy. Why did I come here? First of all, okay, it's an interesting place. And the second thing is that, as you see, it is quite dull and gray weather. And I wanted to see how this can handle colors too. Okay, I could have taken some test shots with some targets and still life, but I wanted to come out to photograph because that is something that I want to do a lot more this year. But let's start to look at some images that I took under this bridge. This is a few days ago, and this is a place I haven't been before, and I found it. It is such an interesting place that I will go there again. The idea of this is to find something beautiful in the ugly, because for some reason places like this tend to draw my attention. I kind of like these grungy looking places. There is something that is not meant to be beautiful, but it's just something. It's really hard to explain what I actually mean by that. But you probably understand when you see the images that I'm trying to find something beautiful in the ugly. And especially I do like graffiti because it takes a lot of talent to make this. I'm not so keen about tags, but nice looking graffiti is something that I really love. And a disclaimer, this lens is not mine. It was sent to me from TTArtisan. And they did not ask me to do this video, nor did they say what I should say on the video, or nor did they say what my opinion should be. So everything I say is my own opinion, like always. And I get to keep the lens. But let's continue and make some more images. Let's have this graffiti, or I don't know what you call it, it's a ramp as a foreground, and see how that comes out. Maybe there are too many clouds in the back. You can't really see the high buildings at all. But let's try and see how this goes. So what do you think? What do you think of this image? And as a camera, I have EM10 Mark II because I think it's perfect for this lens. The settings that I use is f4 f5.6 because that is the best image quality you can get with this lens. I will talk about the image quality with f1.4 later in this video. Let's talk about a bit what I'm looking for when I came to this place. First of all, of course, I said that because there are some colors here, the colorful graffitis makes a great photo opportunity, or there are a lot to photograph here. And then, of course, a standard lens is perfect for this kind of photography. Of course, a really wide angle would make something too, but I think the standard lens is perfect for this type of photography because it's kind of like a nice compromise between the wide angle and telephoto, because I know I could get some great stuff with telephoto to squeeze the perspective, like you see, it's over there, as you see that behind that, in front of the high buildings. That would make a really great image if it was squeezed. But I think the compromise using a standard lens on this is pretty good. And I will post some images to Instagram, and so you can watch them from there and see how they look in Instagram. I did get a few questions when I posted a community post here on YouTube. Martin Tran asked if this is a micro four thirds lens, a original micro four thirds lens. No, it's not. It is an APS-C lens with a micro four thirds mount. And let's check out the next one. Irvan Irvandi asked about macro capabilities. Well, I wouldn't say that this is a macro lens. The closest focusing distance is 20 centimeters, so you can get pretty close with it. And here's an example. This also answers your question, Michael Boy. Chris Webb asked about the image quality at f1.4. And like I said earlier in this video, that I used mostly f4, f5.6 on my images that I made with this. That's because the f1.4 image quality is not that superb. It is usable, but the corners are a bit soft and there is slight distortion. But you can correct it quite easily. You can use Lightroom, for example, to correct the distortion. And it's mainly gone. So not a big issue, but I still wanted to have f4, f5.6 on my images. And then there were some who wanted me to test this against the 20mm OM system lens, the f1.4, the new one. But I wouldn't test this against that lens. I would most likely test this against the 25mm F1.8 lens, because that is more of an option for this lens, because this is really an inexpensive lens. It's about €100/$. Pro version of the 20mm OM system lens is a lot more. This is a fully manual lens, so it means that it's manual focus and a manual aperture ring in the front. The design is so that the aperture ring is here in the front, and then the focusing ring is here in the back or in the middle of the lens. And there are two versions of this lens. The one that has silver rectangulars here, and this one is the black version. And then about the aperture ring in the front, I'm not a big fan of that, because I'm used to focusing from the front. That's just something that I'm used to. It's okay to have it like this. And I know there have been some classic Olympus Zuiko lenses that had the aperture ring in the front. So in that sense, it's a very retro style lens. And for me, yeah, I prefer the other way, but that's just me. The focusing ring is a bit stiff, but there are some good things about that, because it is stiff, and I will tell you a bit later about that. And then we have to remember that because it's totally manual lens, it won't send any EXIF data or metadata to the body. So when I'm photographing with this, I need to add that to the caption, for example, so that I can have Lightroom recognize the lens, and I will have the information about the lens in the metadata by doing it manually. It's not a big deal, but of course it would be great to have all the information, that what aperture was used and all that. That's not there. The only thing that I can really see is what lens I was used if I add it manually. But if I use some other Olympus cameras like the EM1 then I can add that to the lens info, and it will write it to the metadata, which is a bit better. Yeah, the good thing about the focusing ring being a bit stiff is that it doesn't slide by accident. So what I did in many of my images, that I set the focusing distance to roughly 7 meters and put f5.6, and the image will be sharp from around 3 meters all the way up to infinity. Very classical way if you're doing street photography. And of course, if you have a wider angle, it's even easier to do that. So that's a good thing. It is a bit stiff. Images made with TTArtisan 23mm F1.4 lens need some contrast. It's the same thing with every TTArtisan lens that I have tested. The image quality is quite nice, and it has a special kind of character, which you either like or you don't like. It's a bit old-fashioned vibe to the images. Like, actually Jimmy Cheng on his Red 35 channel said that it's 70s to 80s vibe on these images. And I agree, it is a nice vintage look to the images, like the lens itself. And if you're interested in getting one of these lenses, there are affiliate links in the description of this video. I also got the lens hood, which is of course really important, because I really need lens hoods. That protects the front element, and it also blocks some direct light from the front element. Of course, during this type of weather, it doesn't matter. But then it also protects if it was raining, for example. Having it like this, the water won't hit the front element and ruin my images. But hey, thanks for watching, and bye for now.